Hey y'all, thanks for checking out today's edition, the Tuesday, May 6th, 2025 edition here on the Chase Thomas Podcast, where I'm still the aforementioned Chase Thomas coming to you live from Knoxville, Tennessee, Everything School HQ. We've got a fun, jam-packed show for you guys here today. On the program, we've got the Tennessee Vols Sports Guys with Saturday Down South's Ethan Stone and Rocky Top Insiders Ryan Schumpert here to talk all things Tennessee Vols. We talk about Tennessee's bullpen and offensive woes for the baseball team, and if that can get right in a hurry for Tennessee. We talk about the new replacement for Rod Clark under Rick Barnes at Tennessee, what to know about him, and why ball fans should be excited about him coming into the program. We talk about Tennessee's secondary and why it will be elite once again in 2025, and then why Ja'Kobi Gillespie is a big get for Ethan, and why he's really bullish on what he can be for Tennessee next season. So jam-packed show and a whole lot more coming up next here on the Chase Thomas Podcast. Don't forget, folks, you can watch these episodes, full episodes, shorts, clips, all that good stuff here on the channel by hitting that subscribe button. Make sure you give this video a thumbs up and comment below, and let us know what you think of this daily Tennessee Vols sports program each and every day as we grow this channel a little bit more each and every day. So make sure you hit that subscribe button, like, comment below, and all that good stuff each and every day as we talk all things Tennessee Vols Monday through Friday here on the Chase Thomas Podcast. All right, Uncle Darren, let's go.
The Chase Thomas Podcast. My nephew needs me to record. See, I already hate it. I hate it.
All right, hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Chase Thomas Podcast from still the aforementioned Chase Thomas coming to you live from Knoxville, Tennessee, Everything School HQ. Joining me over there from Saturday Down South, he's written 7,000 billion words on the SEC college basketball transfer portal, new roster additions and everything else that people should go check out on Saturday Down South if they have not already. It's Ethan Stone. Ethan, good evening, sir. How are you?
I'm doing great. Yeah, I spent a pretty decent amount of time on that, and then everybody switched where they were going almost immediately. Duke Miles decommitted right after I hit send, and stuff has already changed. And I knew that was going to happen. Obviously, the portal is going to keep going into late May, maybe even a little past that. But yeah, I'm excited about SEC basketball in the month of May. That should tell you all you need to know about me.
Did Duke Miles recommit somewhere else, or is he back on the hunt?
He hasn't yet. For the third time, he is searching for a new team this offseason.
Goodness gracious. You could have been a Vol. You could be starting on a really good team. It's just, what are we doing? What are we doing here? Also here, RockyTopInsider.com, Ryan Schumpert here to talk about what does that star depth look like behind Boo Carter with Colton Hood in the fray here out of Colorado, and not a whole lot else on Rocky Top over the weekend. Ryan, good evening. How are you?
I'm doing well. Asking what are we doing here, talking about the star depth in May. But I was saying, what are we doing here a lot over at Lindsey Nelson Stadium over the weekend too. So just a good common theme. Well, what are we doing here?
It's pretty wild because it's one of those things. I'm glad we don't do these pods on Sundays because I think we would feel differently on Sundays than we do after 24 hours to kind of cool off and recuperate as to what we saw here over the weekend. But 3 straight home loss series. I mean, you're in uncharted territory here with the Tony Vitello era, weirdly enough, in a lot of ways. But I was telling Matt last night on a Pod Divided, Ryan was like, it's just, they've been the number 1 overall team 2 of the last 3 years before this year. It's one of those where Tennessee has been the best team in the sport 2 of the last 4 years, the best overall team. And we've seen some just ridiculous offensive seasons from Tennessee in 2 of the last 4 years. However, we did see the power go away, and Tennessee's offense struggled for a lot of the 23 season. So you've been in this kind of territory before where the offense just is not anywhere close to what you had the previous year, which is understandable. But it's the combination of the offense with the bullpen, with the starting pitching on Sunday. It's just the whole combination. You haven't seen this many things that are question marks. In 23, you kind of solved it. The Burn stuff on Friday was weird for a while. and then Andrew Lindsey just settles that down, and then you just look, and Chase Burns is electric in the bullpen, and it all just kind of worked. Like you kind of felt good about a lot of different stuff once you got to the SEC tournament and onward. But this is just different in a lot of ways because it's just, I don't know what I'm pointing to right now that I'm like, Tennessee's really good here. Outside of, I think, Liam Doyle and Marcus Phillips. Like, I think that's the only like consistent, like, I know you've got a good thing going with those two right now on Friday and Saturday, but everywhere else, I don't know what Tennessee is really good at right now.
Yeah, it's a little bit of an inverse of 23, where 23, I think a lot of the things that you just said, you would have said the first half of 2023 before they started figuring some things out with some of the pitching decisions you mentioned a moment ago. But I think, there was, even when things were struggling, I think you knew that team had a ton of talent in the pitching staff. Like, you knew that team, theoretically, the pitching should be really good. On that team. I mean, you had the entire weekend rotation back from a rotation that was really good the year before.
Wasn't it called the Three Aces? Wasn't that like a whole marketing part of 23, like going into the year? I think there was like a whole Three Aces thing with Beam, Burns, and Doe.
Yeah, I don't necessarily remember the Three Aces specifically. Not to just, you could definitely be right. I know that was kind of something they pumped up, and even past that, you had Seth Alverson, who you knew was really good. You had. Andrew Lindsey was solid early in the season. Obviously, earned that Friday night role because of that. So you saw the path there, and I think with this team, it's not to say that they're not better than they're showing, because I definitely think they are. I mean, we've seen that earlier this year, but there's not just like necessarily one area. I think you say, all right, the pitching should be better than it is, especially in the bullpen. Nate Snead was 1A, 1B out of the bullpen on the national championship team last year, and it has really struggled here in SEC play. You say the lineup, like, there's guys in there that should be performing better than they are, but there's not one area where you're like, yeah, this area of the team's going to have to, if they just put it together, they can go a long way. Where I think in 23, the pitching staff put it together and carried the offense to Omaha. I think for this team, they're going to need a number of things to click in different areas, which probably makes their floor higher than that team was. But at this point in the year, who really cares about the floor? And we've seen the floor be pretty low the last couple of weeks. So it's about the ceiling. And for this team to reach its ceiling, I think it's a little bit harder to see that path, just because of there's so many areas that they haven't been great right now, and they're going to have to improve in. It's not like, all right, the lineup just clicks. This is the lineup that's good enough to get them to Omaha, even if the pitching staff isn't very good. It's going to need to be cohesive, and complementary football is a popular phrase. I've never really heard that phrase in baseball, but it's going to need to be complementary baseball with things in different areas starting to click for this team.
Well, this was really good in Tony Basilio's blog earlier today on his tclub.team, and there was I sent this in the group chat earlier, but it's something that we've been saying all year, is just, or all SEC play, is just, it feels like the offense has been, the power has really gone out to a crazy extent, but you see the broad numbers that include the non-conference, where Tennessee was just mashing before they got into conference play, and it's just kind of skewed the numbers for what you've seen from Tennessee's offense, at least with the home runs. And he had, quote, now at 33 homers in SEC play with 6 to play, the 25 Vols are a cinch to hit half as many as their more muscular predecessor in 24, which had 72. So they're right now at 33 homers. We're taping this on Monday night. And they were at 72 last year. It's jarring how different it is. And look, you lost a bunch of MLB talent. Like, that's just part of the deal. Like, SEMO hit 30 plus home runs. Like, SEMO was just otherworldly in so many different ways. But you lose Burke, another power bat. You lose Dreiling. You lose Tiers. Like, you understand all of that. But you still didn't think the drop off would be this crazy. Like, you didn't think the home run stuff would be this bad. And look, like, if Azuna's in the middle of the lineup all year, maybe that number looks a lot better. But it's just the power part of it, I think, is the most frustrating, where Tennessee goes down early on Sunday, and you're like, I don't think Tennessee has the bats to come back. Like, it's even with a 7-inning game, you just look at it and you're like, I don't think they have the power, which is just crazy at home, where they're so comfortable and they've hit so many home runs over the last 5 years that you feel kind of out of it, because they're not that kind of team that's just going to hit single after single and just start, like your whole point about complementary baseball, Ryan. It just doesn't feel like that's how this offense has been built. It reminds me a lot of the Braves last year, where it was like the Braves, when they're all on and the home runs are clicking and they're healthy, Braves offense is really tough to beat. Like it won a World Series in 21. Like when it's all working, it's great. But when it's not and the home runs aren't there and Matt Olson's not hitting home runs and Austin Riley's not hitting home runs, it's like, oh, this is an ugly offense to watch at times. And I just kind of feel like that's how Tennessee's built. And they've won a national title and they've been really good building their team that way. But it just, this year in particular, it's just the combination of that power outage along with the bullpen woes, along with some of the starting pitching questions there. But I mean, in your estimation, like how big of an issue is the power outage for the Vols offense? Is that the biggest issue there?
For the offense, yeah, I think so. And I would even go, like, it's been very recent. Not that, I mean, they haven't been 24 or 22 all year or all SEC play. But if I'm not mistaken, I'm just spitballing straight in my head right now. I think they have 2 home runs the last 2 weekends. I mean, and maybe I'm missing something, but that's, 6 series of where they hit 31 homers. Like, that's not great. That's not what it was in 24, but that pace is fine. That pace is solid. And I think it goes back to what I've said all along on while I was less concerned about the offense, is that I thought, all right, some of the guys in the back of the order aren't great, but I think at the top, I think Tennessee's really, really good. I think those guys are going to continue to produce. And you've seen Gavin Keelan not hit a ton of home runs, at least the last couple weekends. And definitely, I would say probably down since he got back from injury. Andrew Fisher, it feels like you haven't seen that a ton. At the very least, it doesn't feel like Andrew Fisher hits much to spark Tennessee out of things when their offense is struggling. And Hunter Ensley's doing a fantastic job. Has been Tennessee's most consistent hitter, but he's just not a huge home run guy. He's more of a doubles guy. Dean Curley, while I think some of the stuff for him at the plate has been overblown, there's no doubt he's not hitting for power. Like, he's getting on base some still, where I think he's maybe better than the common fan is acting like, but you needed him to have the power. And then even you throw in Reese Chapman, who since he hit the game-tying home run, or maybe I guess the go-ahead home run in Oxford in Game 3 a couple weeks ago, it feels like he's just been completely absent. All those guys were guys you expected to give Tennessee power and would be able to overcome the back of the lineup maybe not being great, and being some young guys figuring things out. So while it's been a little bit of, I wouldn't even go as far as saying an issue, maybe just hasn't been a strength for over the course of the season, I think it has specifically been an issue that you've seen the last few weeks. And Chase, I think you put it perfectly, and maybe we were chatting about it in the group message too, where it's like this team falls behind. It doesn't feel like they can claw their way out of it because they don't have the power right now, and it's clutch hitting, runners in scoring position, complementary, good fundamental baseball, a lot of base running mistakes this weekend. It just doesn't feel like they're going to be able to do that to piece together one run at times, let alone 3 or 4, crooked number innings without having that power.
On a happier note, though, Ethan Stone, the Vol basketball vibes, just unbelievable here. Rick Barnes could not be loving life more. That man is enjoying being the Tennessee men's basketball coach for another season here. Ethan, as you look at all the new faces that will be on Rick Barnes' new team here this year, who do you suspect, though, will be your favorite new Vol and why?
I think the easy answer here is Nate Mint, but for me personally, it's going to be Ja'Kobi Gillespie, just because I already loved him at Maryland last season. Even before there were kind of rumblings that he was going to enter the portal and be a Vol, obviously a Greenville, Tennessee native. I mean, he's just fun. Like he is a high volume guy. He's efficient. He fits everything you want to in a point guard. And he led one of not just him. He led one of the most fun starting fives in college basketball last season with the Crab Five. They also had the best name in college basketball last season. So it's going to be Gillespie, and I just think he's going to thrive in this offense as well, stepping into the role that Sakai had. Obviously, he's got some pretty big shoes to fill. I don't think he'll quite be able to match Zakai's production, but then again, that's hard to do. I do think he'll be able to in different ways, though. He's a better shooter than Zakai. I still think he sees the floor well enough that he can distribute to both Carey and obviously Felix down low. I don't think the lob threat is going to be going anywhere. He's just a fun player to watch, and I think Vols fans in particular are going to love him. And then I mean, adding on that, I feel like Nate Ament's going to be 1B for me, just because he's, I mean, as talented a player as Tennessee has ever had. Obviously, he's going to be a lottery pick. And, adding that to this team with, like I've already said, Gillespie, who I watched beforehand. It's going to be the entire team. I think is going to be really fun. Like you said, it's a good time to be a Tennessee fan. It's a good time to be Rick Barnes right now because things are rolling right along.
Gillespie's a good call. I think Gillespie is just gonna. I mean, he's just so important to settle everybody in. Like he's gonna have to make Nate Ament's life easier right away. He's to take a lot of pressure off. He's gonna have to facilitate a lot of different bigs and keep them happy, and he's gonna be dealing with a lot of different guys there. Like I think with Cade, with Carey, because I think Barnes is gonna have to experiment. Who he's going to be his pick and roll partner primarily. Like a lot of Felix stuff, I'm sure, but it's just going to be a lot of different dudes. Like we'll see how much JP Estrella plays. We see how much Gade Phillips plays. Like it's going to be very interesting to see how Gillespie navigates so many different new talented faces. But I think Barnes is going to mix and match a lot. And I just think a lot's going to be on Gillespie to kind of calm everything down and make this transition from Sakai to a guy who I think I don't think this is outlandish to say he has first, second team All-American potential if things go right at Tennessee this year. I think there's going to be enough on his plate that I think he can really, really have a big time season. Like everyone's going to look at Ament. Everyone's going to look at, because I think people wanted the Chaz Lanier replacement, like looking at McNeely or whoever, and they're going to look at Abram and what his shot chart looks like early on. But I just think that it didn't feel like it at the time, but Gillespie's probably your connect Lanier this cycle, where it's just, I think he's the most important transfer portal guy and also someone who could be a gigantic offensive weapon. And it's just a little bit different because for Tennessee, I think to win a national title, Nate Ament's got to be, or be in the Final Four, Ament's got to be your best player eventually. But early on, I think Gillespie is just going to be someone who, if he table sets the way we think he's capable of, man, he's going to be a household name in Tennessee very early on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I think you make some good points. I mean, I agree with everything you said about settling things in and how important his role is going to be, and I would kind of lean with Ja'Kobi for the answer too, Ethan, because of that, and the combination of I think he's more polished of a player, and obviously a literal homegrown guy. You don't see too many guys from Greenville, Tennessee, making a splash in any sport in Tennessee.
Wow, no belief in the Green Devils. So
great for a football program, one of the best. I believe they're 4A and one of the best in East Tennessee. I believe a really good baseball
great
program
Firefly
too.
Summer Firefly spot that I attended last year. Yeah, if you want to go see a bunch of fireflies, Greenville's one of your spots.
If people are starting to murmur to me that I have to bully Chase a little bit. It's like the Green Goblin mask. Just staring at me. I don't know, you were like, it felt a little like we didn't think this was going to be that big of that was over dramatic. He didn't quite say that, but Ja'Kobi Gillespie, when they got him, I was like, they won't get another guy better than this in the portal.
Hold on, you're a capital B, capital K ball knower. And I think the average Tennessee fan has not grinded the Maryland Terrapin tape here and has any kind of appreciation for how good he was at Maryland this year. I don't think he has that same, because Chaz Lanier was putting up huge numbers at UNF and he was getting pursued by Kentucky, and that was a huge battle. Connect was just kind of like, it was just more dramatic.
We've talked about it. He wasn't even committed. He was 2 weeks away from committing at this time last year.
Right, and that's what I'm saying. It's a little bit different of a buzz, where it's just, I don't know. It feels a little bit different. But continue on with the bullying. I interrupted. That was my bad.
You handled that well. I think that's a completely fair take. I'll pivot to, I don't know if this is really the answer, but my wild card. What's the upset? I can't think of the right phrase, but potential. What's that?
Underdog.
Yeah, I don't really know. I can't think of what I'm trying to say. But Jalen Carey, I think, has a little bit of that ability, just because to me he's got a little bit in the way the fans love Tobe Awaka. I think you'll see some of that with Jalen Carey. He does a lot of the little things well. He's a good rebounder, scrappy. He's just going to be an easy guy to root for. And while Tobe had a really good personality, but was a little more withdrawn into himself, Jalen Carey's got, I think, a more boisterous personality, which Tennessee's fans obviously will jump to, and I think really gravitate towards.
I mean, he's the kind of guy that I think Tennessee fans love inside. Like, they love Ponzi. They like Felix Akpara. I think they'll like him even more this year. But like you said, I think Carey is just, they wish Jonas Adu had a lot of Jalen Carey in him. They wished Tobe was even a little bit more like that. And you know what? Cade kind of has it. I think that's part of why Cade has become kind of a fan favorite, because Cade's got, like, he's not afraid to be physical and aggressive. And I think that combination is just going to wear teams out, man. If Barnes sticks with Cade and Carey, just rotating at the 4, man, and they stay healthy all year, I mean, get ready to learn bruises, buddy, because you're getting bruised inside with those two for 40 minutes, because they're lower in their shoulder and they're not afraid of contact. And I think it's gonna be fun. Like, I tend to agree though that I think Carey has a lot of Vanderbilt's style does not really bring out the most in Carey. I think Rick Barnes is exactly the type of coach who's just gonna turn Carey into a guy that opposing fan bases really don't like dealing with, but Tennessee fans are like, this guy rocks. Like, I think there's going to be a lot of Jalen Carey. That's my guy.
I think it helps specifically also, if I remember correctly, he wanted to be here. I want to think, if I remember, that he went to the staff himself. So that obviously itself, going from in-state Vanderbilt to Tennessee, that adds to what you were saying, Chase, about just the fan factor, how much Tennessee, actually Ryan said that, but how much the fans are going to enjoy him. I agree with everything he said.
Ryan, buy or sell? I know you're going to hate this question, but it's great.
I hated it when I read it earlier.
I know you did. Sorry. There's no avoiding it, because I think it's a great... I have my answer ready to go, so I'm ready to disagree with you, because I know you're going to be wrong on this, but I'm just going to offer it up just so that I can bring it back. So get ready to volley it back with your wrong answer here, Ryan Schumpert. But buy or sell? Tennessee's secondary will be better in 25 than 24, Ryan Schumpert.
It actually is a good question. I mean, I just don't like talking this much football in May, especially when there's not typically a lot of good stuff to talk about. And I'm glad I read it earlier, because I've thought about it a little bit today and I've changed my answers. I'll go buy slightly.
There you go. We're on the same page.
Yeah. I mean, it was very obvious you thought I was going to say sell. I just think I'm betting on the corners and Boo Carter taking a jump. I don't see any world. Well, let me take this.
Welcome to the Farouk family, Ryan Schumpert.
I think, don't get too far ahead. I don't really see a world where the safety play is better, to be honest. You hope it's as good as it was last year. Chase Thomas, world-class Will Brooks hater, isn't going to like that. But I think the corner and the star aspect, especially if Jamal McCoy can get back and he's obviously the big X factor, but be healthy and get back to who he was last year, and then hope a guy like Ricky Gibson takes a step. And obviously, I think Boo Carter, everybody thinks is going to take a step. Like, I see the path to it being better. I'll buy.
Boo Carter, I was looking, because I was going through all the different Tennessee stats from last year today, and one of the best ones, and it didn't make the rundown here, but like, if you look at Darnell Wright's pass blocking grades and his offensive line grades in 21, worse than Lance Hurd in 2024. So he became Tennessee's best pass blocker in 22, obviously, and becomes a top 10 pick. So all the folks who are selling Lance Hurd stock, I don't know if I'd necessarily sell Lance Hurd stock. I already
saw you hyping him up as the first round pick on the pod.
Look, I said it's night. Lance Hurd, because I think you look at it, Jamad, and I was looking at, because like, there's a lot of uncertainty into who's going to be first round guys who can sneak in. Like, Tennessee had a first round guy here. No, I don't think anyone thought Omar Norman Lott was going to go round 2 before last year, and he rose the boards. Jamad that high is still pretty awesome, pretty wild to see, but Jamad's right there, and I was thinking about like who else could potentially sneak their way in depending on what kind of season they have. I mean, Joshua Josephs is right there too. I think Joshua Josephs, with what he has behind him and Tennessee's track record, where like I don't think it's gonna be fair, but I think Josephs is gonna be tied to what Pierce does with the Falcons in year 1, where if he has a really good he breaks the 7 sack streak by any Atlanta Falcon pass rusher for the longest streak in NFL history this year, then I think there's gonna be buzz, because I mean, I didn't realize Byron Young has 17 sacks in 2 seasons with the Rams. He's been solid as a 4th round guy. He's obviously a different circumstance coming in as a transfer, and Chop and Garner maximized him. But I think Josephs will benefit greatly if Pierce has a good rookie campaign and Byron Young keeps producing. Because, I mean, the league is looking around. They're like, yeah, I'm just going to bet on another Rodney Garner guy and Coach Chop guy. So I think if Josephs has a pretty good year and get to like that 6 to 8 sack range, I think there's definitely a possibility that Josephs is someone who's on that first, second round radar. So yeah, those are my 3, but I would not be surprised if those 3 have the kind of seat they are capable of having and join Jermod McCoy potentially in the first and second round. But that's not the question. The question is...
we got really off topic.
We got really off track. But the people can go read that whole story at sportsrunsontdemand.com. Is that Ryan Schumpert? I think Colton Hood was under the radar, great signing. Like pulling him out of the portal, Georgia, like many forget, McDonough, Georgia, original recruit here, which is big. You want to get as many 4 stars out of the state of Georgia as you can possibly get on your roster. And coming out of Colorado here, but you look at Jermod. I think Jermod's going to be fine, even if he's not ready to go week 1. Ricky Gibson, like you said, year 3, he was solid. Jalen McMurray was one of the 100 best cornerbacks per PFF last year in the sport. And if he can stay at that nickel spot, then I think there's no reason to believe that he won't be solid in that same spot next year and maybe even better. You look at Colton, and if he comes in and you have that's your 4th guy, and he was the 4th guy on Colorado last year, that's a really good foursome for Tennessee there. And then Boo Carter, his pass rush grade was bonkers. Like Boo Carter off the edge at star, I think is just going to be a problem. I think he's Tennessee's best player. I think he's going to have another just breakout year off the edge, and he's just going to be all over the place. Because I saw someone on the message where it was like, do you need to move Boo Carter to safety now? It's like, no, he needs to stay at star. Star is a more important position in Tennessee's defense, and I think he can move him around so much more and just be an absolute menace off the edge. And then you talked about like the safety spot. Like the Tennessee safety, like the production last year, do you know Tennessee was the only school in college football last year to not allow a pass play 50 yards or more? Only one. Wow. So it's just, you go through the numbers, it's like Tennessee's pass secondary was really good in a lot of different areas. And Turrentine, I think, solid. Like he's not he's not a star, but he's solid at that spot. And I just think Idris Farouk, I don't think the drop off from Jacoby Thomas to Idris Farouk is going to be something that is very apparent right out of the gate here. And I think Idris Farouk has a lot of upside, and I would not be surprised if he settles in as a guy that Tim Banks and the staff trusts and runs with the job. Like I would not be surprised if Idris Farouk is a really good player right away for Tennessee. And you also have Caleb Beasley in year 2 settling in there. So is he someone that makes that year 2 jump as a 4-star out of Lipscomb over there in Nashville? So he has that kind of potential. So I just look everywhere. I'm like, it's a lot of blue chippers. It's pretty deep. And I think Tennessee secondary is going to be really good again. I think there's a chance it's better than a year ago, Ethan.
Yeah, I would also buy. I'm actually, I think, a little bit more confident than maybe Ryan is, just because I feel like continuity is important. You got a lot of guys that you just mentioned, Chase, that are already, they're not really coming into a new system. Obviously, Hood is, but you got a lot of depth there. I feel like Turrentine isn't going to get any worse, like you say. I just feel if what you have right now is, I mean, Jordan Thomas, you didn't even mention him. I feel like a fairly good depth piece as well. There's just a lot of guys. Like, there's no one that I feel necessarily uncertain about that I'm like, that's where Tennessee's going to crash and burn, that right there. Because even at the safety position, Chase, like you just said, I think there's a decent amount of depth that you say, that's enough of a safety net that the Vols should be fine moving into next season.
Back to baseball here, Ryan Schumpert. One of the things that I'm curious about is when you look at it, Josh Elander at third base, like there's been some base running issues for Tennessee all season long, but there were some, like you saw in the ballpark, some angles that viewers at home did not see of, like guys falling, because I think who was going for third, and it was like, I think some people were talking about like he may have tripped up. Was it Manny or Hunter?
Manny trying to cover third on the stolen base in game 2 before Loy threw the ball in the dirt.
Okay.
And I think the 5th inning that the guy scored on. Like they had him hosed, and Manny slipped running to third.
Okay.
To cover third.
So it's just hard to say because it was just crazy weather all weekend. But like, did he have as rough of a weekend at third base coach as it kind of felt like watching at home?
Yeah, I mean the results are the results. Some of it I'm not 1,000 because he's not very demonstrative in how he, signals for players to go.
Yeah.
He's not got the big wind up. He's like this. So some of it you kind of can miss. The one that was egregious was in the 10th inning of game 2. I can't even remember the combination, but someone was on first and it was a single. Manny was on first.
Yeah.
It was a single to left field. And
that's who I was thinking of. That's the play I was thinking of with Manny going to third. That was the one I was thinking.
He didn't slip. He just never had a chance.
Okay.
The throw was good. I thought Elander waved him around. Could be wrong on that. Again, it wasn't super demonstrative, but I thought he did. I know he looked up at Elander for sure. So yeah, I mean,
and then there's one with Cannon getting sent home where it was like there was no chance of Cannon beating that one. I just don't understand at this point here in May 5th. I would go conservative with all the base running for Tennessee. Like it's weirdly aggressive with their, like, it's just not a speedy bunch, and that's never been their real MO. It's not like Jay Abernathy. Like Jay,
they've always been aggressive,
but like this, who do you trust on the base path to like extend it where it's like it's a bang bang play? It's like, who outside of Jay Abernathy are you like, yeah, he's got it. I trust maybe Manny. Manny's got some juice there, but Hunter maybe a little bit. Hunter's probably in that group too, but yeah. I don't know. Just not a lot of guys I would be like sending and being like, if it's a 50-50 shot, especially when the offense is struggling as much as it is, just be safe and keep the guy on it. Yeah, I don't know.
That's where I'd go the opposite direction. This team doesn't have guys that can put the bat on the ball. It doesn't feel like when guys are on third with less than 2 outs, they can't get clutch hits. It doesn't feel like right now, So I mean, I see both sides to it. I thought the Manny was terrible. The Cannon one, objectively was a bad send. I didn't just hate it in theory, but yeah, it's like all this stuff. It just kind of compounds on each other. And you feel like
it felt aggressive this weekend where I'm like, what? Like, you're not getting many opportunities, bites of the apple anyway. And I just don't, I don't know.
I would disagree because both of those were in game 2 instances. And I could be missing one. There might've been another one where they had a couple like hit and run calls that backfired on them because they lined into double plays. But as far as like purely base running, sending them, both of those were in game 2, and in game 2 they had nothing. They had nothing but opportunity after opportunity that they squandered. They left 12 guys on base in that game, so it didn't necessarily feel that way to me. But look, they were. One of them was the Manny one was like horrific, and the Cannon one was objectively a bad send. So it is what it is. They were out, and neither play was super close. So that's the tell of the tape in the end.
Ethan Stone. FanDuel dropped Tennessee's over-under to 8.5 after losing Nico Iamaleava to the spring portal window. Now you had a couple weeks to think about it. As of early May, are you going over or under for Tennessee football at 8.5 wins right now?
I think the safe play is probably under, but for what it's worth, I don't think it's very far. I think 8 is the sweet spot. You got... The reason is like Tennessee still plays a very easy schedule. I could absolutely be talked into saying that Tennessee could get 9 wins just based on how easy their schedule is. I mean, there's a chance the Vols play at least 3 and probably 4 of the worst teams in the SEC in Arkansas, Mississippi State, Vandy, and then obviously Kentucky probably being last. That alone, that get you 4 wins plus your 3 Patsies, New Mexico State, ETSU. I can't remember who the other one is, but I know there's one more. And then Syracuse is not expected to be a giant, and the ACC, obviously, they, I think, won 10, maybe 11 games last year, but they had an easy schedule. They're going to take a step down. They lost Kyle McCord, so it's just going to get tougher for them on offense. I think they lost their starting running back as well. So Syracuse, they don't really scare me. The kind of the pivot games, the ones that I think are kind of 50-50 on the schedule right now, obviously Oklahoma is going to be one of them. I think that one is that at Tennessee or is that in Oklahoma? Is that
it's at Tennessee?
It's here. So obviously, I think Mateer is going to make them a better team. Probably Venable's best since he's been there, but that's not exactly saying too much. It's definitely a game Tennessee could win. But if you put Arkansas, Oklahoma, and Vanderbilt, and you say Tennessee has to win all 3 of those, I think I would go against that just with how many question marks there are on offense right now. And then Florida, Alabama, and Georgia. Right now I'd say 70% chance or more that Tennessee loses just because Florida's obviously playing that game in Gainesville, playing in Tuscaloosa, and we get Georgia at home, but Georgia's the toughest of the three. So there's just I could see 9 wins, absolutely. I think that's the sweet spot. I think FanDuel and DraftKings, I think they've got it right. I think 8.5 is about right. I would say they probably win 8 games. They'll drop one of those kind of 50-50 balls, and they'll be 8-4.
It's just so hard because the schedule is just so good for Tennessee still. That's the
is.
reason they were tied with Georgia and Texas and Alabama at 9.5 atop the SEC before the year, even with Nico. And I struggle with it, Ryan, where I'm like, I just don't like the schedule's nice. I'm not sold on Oklahoma. I still have to see it with Venables and company. Like, I have to see this offensive line be a lot better. I need to see this receiving core stay healthy. Like, they lost everybody last year. They did another revamp. We'll see. I mean, you get Jade Knott from Cal at running back. I mean, that might be nice, but it's a spring portal guy. I don't know. Like, it's still something like I got to see it. And Tennessee is so good at home that, I mean, I would be a lot more worried about that game if it was in Norman this year. But it's in Knoxville. And I just think Tennessee, it's not out of the realm of possibility. Tennessee is favored in 9 of 12 games this year. And it's just, I don't know. Like you said, Ethan, I tend to agree that like the 3 losses they felt more like 50-50 in some instances. I'd say Alabama was 50-50 with Nico before the year. And now I'd probably say like 30-70, 20-80, something like that going to Tuscaloosa at this point. But like you said, like, I don't know what Florida's going to be like at the end of the year. We haven't played Florida this late since 2001. So it's just like, they have a brutal schedule again. What does Lagway's health look like? I mean, there's all kinds of possibilities there at the end of the year. But it's just hard because this defense, I still think, is going to be one of the 15 best defenses in college football again. We just talked about the cornerback room and just the secondary as a whole. It's going to be really good. I think Tennessee's still going to be able to run the football. And Heupel will go 12 personnel if the wide receivers can't stay healthy and they can't separate or whatever. He's like, I don't care. I want to win football games. And I think he'll do what he needs to do to grind out wins, as gross as it might be offensively sometimes. I lean towards the over right now. I'm at the 8 to 9 win buffer there. And like you said, the 8.5 just really feels right. But I was also 8.5 before Nico left. I was like that. I think that felt more realistic than 9.5 to me. And I think it's just hard for me to see a team that's lost one home game in 3 years, and it was to Georgia only, is going to lose to Arkansas in back-to-back years. Is going to lose to Oklahoma, who's a 6.5 over under at this point. Like, they're not losing to Vanderbilt at home. Like, I just look all around. I'm like, maybe Mississippi State on the road is the one they get tripped up at against Levy. Like, that's one of those weird ones, just a road stinker that we're not forecasting yet. But I don't know. It's just really hard for me to not see 8 to 9 wins. But I guess it's just, if this offense is horrific, it is a possibility.
Yeah, I mean, I think you did a pretty good job of laying it out there. The schedule's very easy. I think that's what makes the fact that this offense is so disgusting on paper so upsetting, is this should be a year you can capitalize on. And life's about to get a whole lot harder for Tennessee when the schedule flips on them in 26. So yeah, I mean, you can talk yourself into 9-3. I don't think it's that hard because of the schedule. Too many question marks, too many holes on the roster for me to pick that right now. I don't know which game I would say is the most likely for them to lose or anything like that, but I'm still more into 8-4, 7-5 range is most likely at this point in time.
Ryan, what to know about Tennessee's Rod Clark replacement here? Briefly from Florida State, was at Cal the last couple of years. What do you know so far about this replacement and what kind of role he's going to have with Tennessee?
Yeah, I mean, I think Rod Clark takes the job at Indiana, and naturally, and I think for good reason, everybody's reaction was, okay, well, Rodney Terry. And my thought was like, not that that'd be a bad hire by any means. I think they need to go get a young guy that's just a grinder on the recruiting trail, because I mean that's what Rod Clark did such a good job of. I mean, you go through the list of big time Tennessee players the last few years, say there's like a 75% chance that Rod Clark was their lead recruiter. So I think that's what they needed. I think that's what they got in Amaro Morgan. Yeah, I think he's got a really good track record as a recruiter. Landed a couple guys in the portal while he was at Cal, and also the Wilkinson kid from Atlanta that wasn't a huge recruit, but to get him to Cal, I believe he was the 6th man of the year, I want to say, in the
He
ACC,
was.
and then transferred to Georgia. So, I think good eye for talent, a really good recruiter, the type of things that Tennessee needed to replace Rod Clark, which certainly is not going to be easy. And then, I think Morgan, you see some of the success he's had recruiting. Atlanta, he's obviously was at South Alabama for a little while, from Memphis. I think just from a general standpoint of dividing up areas, I think you've seen Justin Gandy do a really good job of recruiting North Carolina, a really good job of recruiting Virginia. And a lot of Rod Clark's connections were in the Midwest or in the Texas area. At Link Academy specifically, which obviously is a prep school, so you can get kids from all over. I would like to know more about where Amaro Morgan has a bunch of ties, but just generally speaking, looking at where he's been, where he's recruited, I kind of think that meshes well with Tennessee's staff.
Can they still add Ronnie Terry? Is there a rule on the number of bench coaches and all that? Because I know that obviously that changed for football. Is it changed for basketball where Barnes, if he wants to stack up a little bit, like a couple more bodies, could he do that or no?
I think he could. I'm not 1,000% sure. I mean, I don't think he would be an official assistant coach position, but I think you can make up some sort of title and bring him in.
Do you think that's possible or no?
I would say it's unlikely if I'm ballparking it, but I don't have a ton of insight there. That's just more speculation of reading the tea leaves of where things are at this point, and the fact that clearly Tennessee was going to go in a different direction with its assistant coach spot.
Has Stojkovic committed somewhere, Ethan, or no?
Yeah.
Where's he at?
Illinois.
Oh,
right?
He's at Illinois. Okay.
Yep.
One of the Croatians.
Yeah.
Or maybe not Croatians, but Eastern Europeans.
He's done 3 schools in 3 years, right?
Yes.
He's a three.
I'm so glad you said this, Chase. Airing a grievance, a take, and I don't mean to rip the kid. He's a great ball player. Clearly,
where this is going.
Academics was a big deal for him. He went to Stanford out of high school. There was no reason for Stanford to get him other than academics. He transfers again. I think Amaro Morgan was his lead recruiter at Cal, so I don't mean to.
Well, that's also
sure
great. Like 2 premier institutions. Like you could sell it. Like 2 premier institutions.
I'm sure he had a great relationship. They had a good relationship. But besides academics, there was really no reason for him to go to Cal from a basketball standpoint. So clearly,
you don't believe in the Madsen magic.
Very academic-driven kid, which is great. You kind of threw that all out the window by transferring to 3 schools in 3 years. Look. I'm not a professor. I'm not the dean of the College of Communications over at Tennessee. I can't imagine that's good for your academic development to be going to 3 colleges in 3 years. So that's my random.
We're now at a point because it's kind of uncharted, right? Like I'm ready for the athletic paper. Like I'm waiting for it to drop somewhere where it's like or Ross Dellinger at Yahoo Sports, where here comes the 7,000 word piece on like just where graduation rates are for the multi-time transfers and just like what the credit situation is. Because it has to be crazy. Like there's just no way it's not insane.
Yeah, it has to. I mean, it is the least talked about thing in the transfer portal.
Yes.
Because I really am. I am all for, a lot of these decisions are purely motivated by money, and I get like that kind of sucks. But at the same time, I see a kid like Jonas Adu who can't play in the NBA, and like the logical part of my brain, like I don't like how he left Tennessee. I don't like how he handled some of that stuff. But the logical part of my brain's like, yeah, dude, go maximize how much money you can make while you can. But you better get a degree at the end of it, which Jonas did. All these kids transferring 4 times trying to maximize their earnings for 4 years, and then you don't get a degree at the end of it. That's crazy, and that's a huge detriment to the kids, which I think is one of the least talked about negatives of the transfer portal.
Well, it's also like a lot of them, like the role player kids, like not realizing they're role players. Like it's harder when you're younger, where it's like, hey man, if you accept you're a role player at Tennessee and you just do Tennessee role player stuff for 3 to 4 years, like you're going to always have opportunities at the University of Tennessee. And it's a gigantic university with people who are going to be more likely to help you because you've been around and been like one of those guys where it's like, you're not going to play in the league for 15 years. But it's one of those hard things, I think, for young kids to accept. And I understand this, where it's like, it's easier when you have a vet who's been in the NBA for 7 years to be like, hey man, it's probably not happening. I understand you were a lottery pick 7 years ago, but you're not going to be the guy. You're not going to be a yearly all NBA guy. You're not a max player, which is okay. Like, you can carve out a long-term niche, but that's just not who you are. It's harder to tell like 18 to 22-year-olds like, hey, you're probably best suited to be a role guy. So instead of going to 4 schools in 4 years and then graduating and then and then just being out of eligibility, you can't really go back to any of those schools and be like, remember me? I could read some help now. Like, it's one of those. I mean, Jason Sway made a great point about this on the Swain event last week with Ja'Kobi Thomas, where it's like, you're an in-state guy. Like, he's a good player. Like, he's not an elite player by any means. And if you do 2 years at Tennessee, after it's all over, even if you get a couple years in the NFL or something, you can come back. You did 2 years and you were a hard hitter, and people remember Ja'Kobi just smacking dudes, like coming in like a missile and like as a heavy hitter. There's opportunities there. Now, I mean, I just like, you're fine. Everything's going to say Miami. Like, Ja'Kobi Thomas, everything is Miami. That's where you finished up, and that's it. And I mean, maybe you have those connections to Miami from here on out, but it's like one of those where, I don't know. I just wonder, like, Sway made a good point of like, I wonder what they think like 10 years later, where it's like, man, I maybe should have just stayed at Tennessee for those 2 years and just been happy as a role player, making pretty good money, and understanding that, like, I probably wasn't going to be the next Eric Berry or be an NFL All-Pro multiple times. You know, I don't know, but it's hard for kids.
1,000%. That's a great. I mean, I saw Swain make the point too, and completely agreed with him.
We were all over the place there. Goodness gracious. I don't even know what we were talking. I don't even know what the original
I mean, where did we start at there?
Goodness gracious.
Oh, Amaro Morgan. That's where we started at.
Bring it all together. Ethan, one portal target who went to another SEC school that you wish Tennessee added in hoops. Who is that guy for you?
Yeah, this is a really interesting question, because I feel like, obviously I don't think you're going to get better than Gillespie as far as a point guard goes. And my favorite SEC transfers as of right now are point guards. Xavier Brown from St. Joe's going to Oklahoma. There's a couple more there, but I won't dive too far into it. There's a couple power forwards I think are fun. And obviously there's a couple centers that I think are fun, but Tennessee was already kind of set at that position. So my answer to the best fit for Tennessee that Tennessee actually needed, this is a bit of a weird one, but would be Mike James for Vanderbilt. He actually didn't play last season. He transferred to NC State and then didn't play. He played for Louisville the season before that. I just think he's a good fit for what Tennessee needs. A really athletic guard, incredibly efficient shooter. He was just a freshman at Louisville when he was playing really well. I think he shot 36% from three, above 50% from two, has an eye for the rim. I think he's going to be really fun for Vanderbilt this year. I think that's a good fit for Mark Byington's crew, and I think it would have been a lot of fun in Knoxville. My favorite, acting like Felix Alpara doesn't exist. My favorite just overall transfer addition in the SEC that I think will be fun wherever he goes. One that's kind of flying under the radar is Quincy Ballard out of Wichita State, went to Mississippi State. The most efficient shooter in the transfer portal. I believe he was number one at KenPom. It's like a crazy 75% or something like that from the field. And he just plays like a completely insane person in the post, like a complete animal in the post. Really good near the rim, really good rim defender. He can jump about 1,000 feet in the air. I think he's going to be really, really fun for Mississippi State. I don't necessarily think they have the best squad heading into this year, but Quincy Ballard's a name to watch. He would have been really fun on Tennessee. But like I say, Tennessee just didn't really need that. I mean, Felix already solidifies that position. I talked about continuity with the football team earlier. It's even better in basketball to keep guys in that system, keep them playing where they are. So obviously I don't think I would take Ballard over Felix right now. That just is my favorite addition. And then Mike James is fun. Nigel Pack out of Miami, I think would have been a decent fit. Obviously Tennessee's kind of kicked the tires around with him before in I think 2022, if I am not mistaken. Maybe going into the 2023 season. Elite shooter. I think he'll be good for Oklahoma as well. A little bit of a setback is he's on the shorter end, and having I think Gillespie's not but 6 foot, 6'1", so adding a 6'2" Pack next to him as the shooting guard might have.
Is Gillespie only 6 feet?
6 feet, 6'1", something like that. He's a little undersized. And if you were to add Pack, like theoretically, like we're talking about here, I think that would present some problems as well with backcourt size. But Yeah, a lot of fun additions, just not necessarily any that I think will fill Tennessee's needs this season that the Vols haven't already got.
I love it. Final thing here, Ryan, is it fair to pick on Tennessee's transfer portal pitching additions this cycle outside of Liam Doyle? Because like we talked about at the top here, like Andrew Lindsay, Seth Halverson, in 23, when you had the other struggles, Tennessee has always done pretty well in the portal. But right now, it's just Liam Doyle, all-time hit. But it was kind of like, that's not... You were on this before the year even started. Like, Liam Doyle was your dude, and you're like, Liam Doyle is just going to absolutely dominate for Tennessee on Fridays. What did you have? Like, SEC Player of the Year, I think, before the year in Rocky Top Insider?
SEC Pitcher of the Year.
Pitcher of the Year, yeah. Like, you were on the Liam Doyle thing. But it's like, outside of that, you haven't hit on Arvidsson, on Franklin, really. Is Franklin a hit?
Well, I'm going to go to your question as a whole. I think it really depends on whether you're including JUCO's guys in the transfer portal.
I'm including JUCO.
Yeah. If you're going to do that, then yes, I think it is. Franklin's been solid for him.
Okay.
He's not been great.
Yeah.
I think it's, again, like you feel like that's a really nice piece. If you were asking Tanner Franklin to throw an inning, maybe an inning plus once a weekend, you'd feel great about Tanner Franklin.
Yeah.
To me, it's when they had to stretch him more, when the limitations show up a little bit. But yeah, the rest of it, I think that's completely fair.
I mean, they pieced together Chris Stamos and AJ Causey last year on Fridays. Like, that was just fine for weeks. Like, it was just fine. They were all fine.
Yeah, it's Stamos, a guy they found super late in the process, too.
And he was a hit. And I mean, Causey, he wasn't able to stay with the starter, but I mean, Causey could give you innings, and Causey
was the true starter in that duo. You know, they were asking him to get more outs every weekend.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, it's just not. Arvidsson has not hit. Feels like he's a year away. Combs was a guy who came into the year with big expectations. Has not. I don't think he's gotten an out in SEC play. Which, if you would have told me that before the season, I'm not sure. I hardly would have believed you.
I mean, we haven't seen him in a long. When was the last time we saw Combs in SEC play?
Been a long time. He hasn't been great in his midweek outing, so it's not like he's been knocking on the door. Crabtree hasn't been close, particularly. Breedlove has been closer, but certainly hasn't been a hit. Wiggins hasn't carved out a role or anything like that, and obviously injured now, so that won't happen this season. So yeah, I mean, I think it's completely fair. I think they probably went heavier on JUCO arms, like late. They went heavy on JUCO arms in the transfer portal window. Crabtree was a transfer portal window guy. Arvidsson was obviously a transfer portal window guy. And those, it just hasn't clicked. It hasn't worked out. So when you're including it as a whole, yeah, I would, really iron it specifically to JUCO arms. I needed a couple of those JUCO arms to hit, and really just none of them truly have. I mean, Arvidsson isn't in nothing, but hasn't hit the way they needed him to, especially if he was going to be the only one from that bunch.
And it's just weird, man, because you won a title with a piece together weekend rotation a year ago, and there's so much more like top end talent this year. But I never would have thought that out of Arvidsson, Wiggins, Franklin, Crabtree, all these different names, that a handful of them did not just settle in to be reliable guys for Frank Anderson this year. Like, it's pretty wild that it's just been as low of a hit rate as it's been this year. And that's not to say they can't figure it out next year. And I think several of these guys will obviously be factors next year. But this year in particular, I did not anticipate it just being Liam Doyle and a little bit of Tanner Franklin.
Yeah, no, agree. And I like what you said there about, especially JUCO guys. You feel like year two a lot of times can be the big jump for those guys.
Yeah, it wouldn't be surprising if Combs and Arvidsson are really good for you next year.
Exactly. But no, you're right. And it's just, I mean, we said it all last year. We said it going into the year, especially last year when you knew the offense was really going to be really good. And there were a lot of question marks about the pitching staff, all the more so once they lost AJ Russell, where it was just like, yeah, you trust Frank Anderson to figure it out. If you're going to have questions on one, you'd much rather be the pitching staff because they'll figure it out. And this year and injuries have played a part in it, but it feels like they've almost gone the other way, where more questions have emerged as the season's gone on.
I mean, neither of us saw Banky not being a factor in SEC play. Like, I thought he was going to have a breakout year in the bullpen. Like, it's just, you look all around. It's just
his role is less than it was last year. Like, he's not even. They're going to Michael Sharman as the lefty specialist over him.
I mean, we didn't have Sharman on the as a possible. Like, I didn't see him as an SEC guy before the year.
No, neither did I.
So it's just, and then Krenzel kind of out of nowhere too. And I mean,
Krenzel.
Yeah,
Krenzel was weird because he didn't pitch in the fall, and then he pitched in the preseason, and he was really good in the preseason, and everybody you talked to raved about him.
Yeah, he's gonna be good for Tennessee.
It was probably because he wasn't super built up. But then when the season started, he didn't really pitch much. So then you kind of like, oh, well, bad call by us. Bad call by mentioning Krenzel as a guy that could make an impact. And then SEC play comes around. And I know obviously a bad outing for him on Sunday, I think, after getting back from missing some time due to an illness. But certainly has been better than expected, or at least has impacted things in SEC play more than expected.
And he's going to be a contributor. Like, he's someone you pencil in next year. He's going to be a really important player, I think.
Sure.
Ethan Stone, what can the good folks check out from you and the team over at SightDownSouth.com this week, outside of the big piece that everyone should go check out that you put together on all the different transfer portal movement in the SEC?
Yeah, I'm probably going to be taking a bit of a step away from that. I'm going on vacation here in the middle of this, so I don't have too much coming down the pipeline.
In the middle of this pod?
What?
In the middle of this pod?
I'll be on the pod. I'll make time for the pod. We're going out to San Diego.
I thought you meant like right now. Like, I thought you were saying in the middle of this, and I'm like, in the middle of the pod. Like, is Ethan stepping out?
He's got an Uber right now.
I gotta go, man. We can wrap up, but I'm on the road.
No. For the most of the month of May, I won't be writing too much for SDS. I will be on the news desk the rest of this week, so obviously we'll be covering some baseball. Obviously portal happenings for both college football and college basketball, and then the rest of the crew will continue onwards through May as the SEC baseball season comes to a close.
I love it. And what about you over there at Rocky Top Insider, Ryan Schumpert?
Yeah, basketball portal stuff, basketball offseason feels like that's slowed down. So anything else that happens football related, and obviously baseball stuff, a series Tennessee needs to get this weekend. So we'll have you covered on all that good stuff and anything else that pops up.
Ryan Schumpert, Ethan Stone, always a pleasure, and I'll talk to y'all next week.
Nicely done, nephew. The Chase Thomas Podcast. Hell yeah.